Mo is basically have developed something called the one-page plan, which he's going to go into a lot more detail to. He's pointing to in the background. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Mo. Mo, welcome.
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks for inviting me and nice to see everyone. Just a couple of questions. You guys are 50-50, just thumbs up. You're 50-50 co-founders?
Yeah.
Okay. And Will, you launched a month ago, meaning you set up the business a month ago, or you launched your product a month ago?
We launched the product, about 6 weeks ago. But we started like July last year.
A year. Lockdown business, huh?
Exactly.
Okay, great. And Jennifer and Stacey, how long have you guys been around?
We decided to do it in February, launched the product in September last year. Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I think maybe I'll just do a quick intro in terms of philosophy, maybe, and then I want to hear from you guys, because really, like Ollie said, it's an intimate group, so we might as well hear what you guys want to talk about, and see if you can tap into my experiences in any way, and I can talk a little bit about how this helped me build my co-founder relationships and nurture them and maintain them over a longer period of time than maybe my earlier co-founder relationships. So I'll start with this idea. I always show three words on the board: individual, collective, and then potential. And I'll explain a little bit why. The individual is the smallest minority in any group, right? And I know it might be a simple concept, but it's a really important one. You see a lot of identity politics being played out now, and how people are getting grouped, Black or LGBT or women entrepreneurs or co-founders even as a group, particularly in America. It's maybe not as big here yet, but they'll lump people within a certain group. And what we've found is that there's more differences within the group than between the groups. Meaning, if you lump women co-founders into a group and men co-founders into a group, there's more differences amongst women co-founders than there are between men and women co-founders. And it's the same with individual founders versus co-founders. The differences are at the individual level, not at the group level. This is anthropologically obvious, and kind of the argument's already been, the debate's been closed, let's say. So what's important is that you want to really look at yourselves as individuals, particularly in this early part of your journey, because it's not so much that you want business success. And again, you can say to me, I'm wrong, but it's not so much that you want the collective success as you want to get your individual success through the business. So my challenge to you, or my invitation to you, is to consider the fact that each of you has an individual desired outcome, an individual version of your success, living your best life, right? As the kids say, living in the type of world, the type of day-to-day that you want to live in. So it's important really to understand this and to support each other to be able to create that individual reality that you're looking for. It's the same as when I talk to married couples, it's the same thing, or flatmates even. I'm coaching a couple of flatmates now, and I'm saying to them, you both want your own version of the best way to live in this apartment, and you need to align on it. Otherwise, that's going to cause you problems. So that's the first thing to consider. The second thing to consider is we're pretty pathetic on our own. I always talk about these movies, where everyone dies and there's only one person left standing, usually Will Smith or Matt Damon, something like that. And I'm like, I wouldn't know what the hell to do. I can't build cars. I can't harvest food. I can't hunt. I can't do anything. So we need to find the right collective for us. And what's beautiful about the co-founder relationship is you've already started the collective. It's a lot easier to be with someone. Why? Because you get to complement each other, but you also get to face each other and contend with each other and show each other the truth about each other in a way where you can't just run away. Well, you can, but really when you've committed to a business, it's much harder, right? And so that's the idea, is how do you create the right collective starting with you two and then moving on to hopefully you build a team. I don't know. Do you guys have it just with a thumbs up or down? Do you have a team or is it just you two? Got it. Okay. So you are the team and then you want to grow the team. Well, imagine there's a fracture in the relationship that you haven't quite identified or realized yet. And then you start adding to that collective. That's not a very good foundation to grow or to scale in. And I learned all this the hard way. No one sat me down and spoke to me about this, which is why I'm happy to give my time to speak to co-founders about this particular subject. And the idea is that our greatest potential as individuals lies through the collective, right? It's this idea that you can't really achieve your potential on your own. And the fact is you've now got an opportunity to achieve your potential already using the support of each other. And that's what makes teamwork so good. That's why I love team sports. But that's why team sports are so popular, especially when you compare them to individual sports, because people love this idea that you're greater than the sum of your parts. And it's true. So your 50-50 relationship, you want 50 plus 50 to equal 150, right? Most co-founders I know, they don't even equal 100. And that's because of misalignment, essentially. So I want to talk today a little bit about alignment. So something like that. I said 150, 120. It doesn't really matter. What does alignment mean? And how do you know you have it? And what are you going to do if you spot that you don't have it? And what are you going to do with any misalignment? What are you going to do with that? Is that the end of the road? And how do you know? And how do you plan for that? And how do you prepare for that? That's a subject that's very interesting for me because unspoken conflict is multiplied conflict. And it'll come out in ways that you have absolutely no idea. And it'll come out at times that you don't want it to come out in. And it'll jeopardize your ability to get individual success and business success and collective success. And nobody really benefits from that. So that's the first question I always ask partners of any type is, what have you agreed to? And how do you know you're aligned on that agreement? Because agreement and alignment is a different thing for me. You can be aligned and disagree, which is a healthy relationship, or you can agree but be misaligned, which is the unhealthiest relationship. Do you guys know what I mean by that, or do you want me to expand on that? William?
I was going to say, do you mean more in terms of like the job roles, or do you mean like the overall goal is the alignment, if that makes sense?
Everything.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of alignment agreement. You go to McDonald's. I don't know if any of you go to McDonald's. I still like the breakfast at McDonald's. I'm not ashamed to say that. And then you turn up at 10:32 and they say breakfast stopped at 10:30. And you say to them, come on, it's 10:32. And they say, sorry, that's what the boss says, or that's what the corporate rules are. That's from upstairs. We can't do anything about it. That's agreement. Alignment is where they say, listen, we've had to clean the whole kitchen, get rid of all the egg stuff, prepare it for lunch. Otherwise, we're not going to have an opportunity to serve lunch on time. And that's why we have to have an endpoint on breakfast. And that's alignment. That's buying in to why we're doing what we're doing and how we do what we do. And then expressing that from a personal perspective rather than passing the buck and saying, well, Jonathan made this rule up. It's not me. Go speak to him. Or that was Jennifer's idea. I've got no idea what she was thinking at the time. It's stuff like that. So the overall message is don't agree if you don't agree.
Makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. And there's this idea that some of you might be dominant characters. That tends to be who forms co-founders. One tends to be more dominant than the other, psychologically speaking, not physically, although that could be the case too. But it's like, okay, she always gets her way, or I can't be bothered to argue with her, or yeah, okay, fine, I'll pick my battles. And it's like, so that's one problem. The second problem is that we don't actually identify where the misalignment is, or the lack of agreement is, because we're too busy launching a product or raising money or dealing with finances, or busy being busy, that we don't actually have time to sit and consider where are the potential problems. Because you want to prepare for success, right? You don't know you're going to be successful, but you want to prepare as if you will be. In which case, when you are successful, you don't have these problems showing up and causing all sorts of problems. Yes, William.
I guess from my perspective at the moment, so Jonathan has worked in the FMCG market for kind of 5 to 7 years or whatever it is. And I trust a lot of what he says because I don't have the experience in it. But I make sure I kind of like ask the question and say, what does that mean? Like, why are we doing it that way? And I guess you probably got to have that element as well, because yeah, you might just not know. But you got to like trust in the other co-founder that they know and what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
Well.
That's a great point. So you're aligned to this idea that Jonathan might have more experience. That's alignment. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything he says.
Yeah, that's cool.
But if you're aligned to the fact that if we're at stalemate or loggerheads, and it's an FMCG decision, I don't know how you identify that. By the way, that's another topic. Like, how do you identify what decision is in his ballpark? Are you precise and specific with that, or is that just we'll figure it out when we get to it? And if you it's more rhetorical, William, but if you've agreed, if you've aligned on the fact that in this particular instance Jonathan gets the final say, that's alignment. You don't have to agree with his decision, but you've aligned to the fact that Jonathan makes that decision. You see the distinction, Jennifer and Stacey and Jonathan, right? And these are difficult conversations. These are getting to, it's like, if you've all, any of you, I'm sure you've all been in, you're all very attractive. I'm sure you've all been in relationships with another, intimate relationships. It's the same thing. It's how many of these problems come up because we haven't spoken about them before. So it's the difficult conversations. It's easy to talk about logo color and where on the website we should put. That's the easiest conversation in the world. And you can argue about that and have this, it's kind of a delusional sense of importance about the subject matter, but actually none of this is important. No one cares about your logo, right? If you're building a brand, ultimately there'll be, but look at the big brands. They've all changed their branding because they focused on it after they were successful, not before they were successful. The biggest waste of time is talking about things that aren't going to make you money, and branding isn't going to make you money. It's going to sustain your money-making initiative in the future. But it doesn't make you money. No one comes and says, what a pretty logo, let me spend $5,000 on that. That just doesn't happen. You can just look at Alan Sugar's brands if you don't believe me. The ugliest branding you'll ever see. But he sells way more than practically anyone else in his market spaces. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. Any questions or comments other than maybe William while we're on this subject before I move on to the next part?
Just, I guess, so I've never thought about it. Yeah, there's agreement and alignment, and then the importance, I guess, of having those discussions, because I think, I don't know how personal we get in these chats, but I think Jennifer and I have always tried to do everything jointly. And I feel as though we've always been pretty honest with each other as well. So completely agree with that concept. I don't think I've thought of it in that way before. But I think the challenge that I see coming for us is doing that whilst allowing for, because I feel like we have no time at the moment. We both have 2 young kids, we both work, and we've got business. And it's now, I think, is when it's how you operate as co-founders equally and manage multiple spinning plates. So yeah,
that's a great share. I'll come to that in a second. Jennifer, you want to build on that?
I was just going to say, kind of, I'd never thought of the alignment and agreement as well, and I would say that we're fairly aligned in our aims and how we want things to happen. We don't always agree, but I would say that there's not always one of us that's more dominant. I would say Stacey's probably more dominant because she has more experience. We're both kind of new to what we're doing, but I would say she's got more kind of business experience than I do. But I think we're quite good at, when we do disagree, being able to talk it through fully and make decisions jointly. So we don't always agree, but I think we are aligned quite well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, why do you want to agree? You know, it's like when I ran businesses, even as with co-founders, we would always have, we didn't like we called them yes men at the time, but yes people, just sitting there going, yeah, great shout, Mo, and oh yeah, that's amazing. And it's like, what the hell's the point of that? That doesn't tell me anything. And it's the same, I think, and I think you're missing a trick if you're agreeing to, or if you're trying to agree to everything. And if you are agreeing to everything, I think you're missing a trick, because that can't be right, that you agree on everything. It just can't be. That's a massive red flag for me. So I think that's a great indication that you're misaligned, is if you're agreeing on everything and that there is a dominant character. Or they call this imposter syndrome now. By the way, it's not a syndrome. It's not a scientific medical thing. Imposter syndrome is this idea that you don't think you know enough, and none of us think we know enough, because none of us know enough, especially in entrepreneurship, because we're exploring the unknown. You know, always. It's not a 9 to 5 where you're getting your salary, and even then you're not safe in any way. So there's this idea that if we don't know that if we don't think we're good enough, and you both kind of intimated about, well, the other one has a bit more experience in business or whatever it is, it's like, does that stop you from speaking out? And actually, Stacey, you want to know, you want to be aware of Jennifer's maybe lack of confidence in some part on business matters compared to you, because then you can encourage Jennifer to then speak her mind and say, well, what would you do if I stayed out of this?
Yeah, and I think that's actually where we've worked particularly well together, I think, in the past, because I think we do work in different ways as well. I think I can be really impulsive and probably a bit scattered, whereas Jennifer's a lot more measured, looks for evidence. You know, she's a vet by trade, she does everything carefully, and that's worked really, really well, because I think we've stopped each other going down, you know, we kept us sort of on an even keel rather than going too mental or anything. So I think that's worked really well for us, I think.
Yeah, great, complimentary, right? Were you guys friends before, or did you meet in one of these find your co-founder type events?
No, we've known each other since we were 12.
Since Scotland, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, secondary school, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Jonathan, anything you want to say, add, ask?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting just to get the sort of the outside spin on it. I think a lot of the stuff that Will and I are like processes and the way that we like share information and challenge each other is pretty good. I think it's pretty aligned. So yeah, and it's also interesting to hear how Stacey and Jennifer kind of operate as well. I think it's quite good to have like one person who's a bit disorganized and scatty, and then one person who's a bit more organized and can kind of make sure that things are kind of getting done, ticking over. So yeah, it's interesting. I think as well, like Will and I we've been friends since we're about 15, 16. So similar type situation as well.
Amazing. Okay, yeah, well, it's not always the best situation, but it's not always the worst. I've been the CEO of 3 companies. One was father son, one was brother sister, and one was best friends. So I was the CEO of the 50-50 co-founder. So I've got that experience too. And the 12 companies that I was a co-founder in, half of them were 50-50. The other were split. That we had a third. We had majority in some of them. So I've had a real different, like a buffet of co-founder interaction. And actually, I don't see a theme. What I see is that if we're not aligned, there's going to be problems. Whether you're father, son, whether you're brother, sister, whether you're best friends, whether you're strangers, it doesn't matter. There's going to be problems. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how I think you can ensure alignment, not just today, but in future. And I'll tell you a little story. I built a crepe business in Dubai. It was a creperie chain. I just didn't see any crepe chains around, and I love crepes, savory particularly. And I saw an opportunity to build a global brand. I called it Holy Crepe. That got rejected in Dubai because of its religious connotation. So we ended up calling it La Crepe Paris, which was a shame, because that's another example of what I was saying earlier. We spent so much time and money on the branding, and then the economic department rejected the name. So our plan was to dominate the Middle East and then dominate North Africa and then go into Europe. And by the time we'd hit success and we started getting these inquiries, Alex, my 50-50 partner, said, I'm happy. I'm getting married. I'm happy where I am. I don't want to expand. I'm happy with the money. And we had a massive argument. And in my immaturity, my stance was, you agreed to this 6 years ago. And now when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, and 6 years has changed him. New information, new life circumstances, new dependence, a new outlook on life. He's realized that he has what he wants. Why would he jeopardize that? And I kept saying, you bloody agreed to it there. And this is where I started thinking about, well, how do we do a health check on our alignment more regularly? So I started developing the one-page plan. The co-founder one-page plan actually is what I called it initially. But now I use it for individuals. I use it for teams. It's the same model. And I'll be happy to share some of that with you. But I wanted to just check, William, to see if there's anything else you wanted to add to what we said, and to see maybe what your biggest problem is. And maybe we'll do that as an exercise, actually. William, anything you want to add to what I've said? Anything you want to build on before I move on to the next part?
No, it's all good. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for asking you to step back a bit. I just wanted to hear some of the other voices. But I'm always encouraging of people to keep talking, because sometimes I'm in groups and no one says anything. So yeah, I don't want to nip that in the bud. Okay, I'm going to give you a model. I'm going to show you a model that I worked on. It's such an elaborate model. Look at it, right? And I'll explain it a little bit. So you start with your A's and B's. That's your awareness levels and your beliefs. What I mean by that is, what are you aware of? Self-awareness, aware of the environment, your partner, your situation, your circumstances, things like that. And your beliefs, it's what you believe. This was pretty much set by the time you're 7 years old. Again, the literature on that is clear. Your belief structure is different. It's like your fingerprints. So you're not going to all believe the same thing all the time about everything. That's 8 billion different belief systems that we have in the world today. And that comes from a number of reasons, from a number of variables. But essentially, that determines your actions and your behaviors. It's an important distinction, right? You act out what you believe. You don't say it. No one cares what you say. It's you act. So if you believe in God, you act as if God exists. Just because you say I believe in God doesn't mean anything. It's like the atheist on the plane, and then turbulence happens and he starts doing all this spirito thing, and it's like, oh, so now you suddenly do believe in God, right? It's you act as if you believe something, and that's what shows you. So if you pay attention to how you act, you will start understanding a little bit about your belief structure. It's the same thing as the doubts, Jennifer. So if you act as if you're not good enough to make a certain decision, you believe that you're not good enough to make a certain decision. Whereas if you want to dominate the decision and take control, you actually believe that you have something to say. So your actions will determine what you believe. It's an important thing, because you can start helping each other understand what you each believe by acting as a mirror to the other, because we have blind spots like crazy. We think we are a certain way, but actually we're not often. And we need other people's feedback. And feedback is everywhere, by the way. Feedback isn't, hi, Jennifer, I'd like to sit down with you and give you some feedback. You can spot feedback in how people react and act and behave around you. And you can start thinking about, well, what does this mean about me, right? So anyway, without getting too philosophical about this, whatever your awareness and beliefs and actions and behaviors has landed you today in your current situation. And that's C. So you all have a current situation. For example, you kind of introduce yourselves a little bit by it. Oh, we've just launched, we're this, we're that, but you have a deeper current situation, which is how you see your relationship, how you see your individual position within the life that you've created for yourselves thus far, personal and professional, right? And that's where your challenges come and your conflicts come today, right? If you've all got it, so you've all got a current situation, right? Ollie, you can agree that you've all got a current situation. That's what makes us all the same, that everyone who is aware that they exist has a current situation. And you can split that in a number of different ways, but essentially it's the life that you're living today, right? And then that means you've got a desired situation. That's you're living your best life. So you've got a current situation and you've got a desired situation. And some people will say to me, my desired situation is my current situation. Okay, maybe. I doubt it, but maybe. But if it is, then your desired situation is to maintain your current situation. Because we all know that even if things are good, they're not going to stay good, right? So there's a continuous movement towards your desired situation. You can call it your destination. Any of you familiar with Scrum? Yeah, you can call it your definition of done. It means when you can finally put your feet up. You've done what you needed to do. You've built your legacy. You've created your business. You've lived your life. You've raised your family. Whatever it is, whatever your definition of done is, you can call it that legacy statement. We'll do that exercise actually in a second. How are we doing on time, Ollie?
I think we're good. We've got, I'd say 20 minutes, Mo, so I think we're pretty good.
Perfect, more than enough. Okay. Any questions on that, or is that pretty clear? So it's as simple as the ABC so far, right? Now, you have to determine what this is first, right? At the individual level. So if I say to Stacy, do you know Jennifer's desired situation as an individual? How confident would you be? Vice versa. It's the same with William and Jonathan. It's the same, Ollie, with your partners, right? Do you know what the other person wants out of their life at the individual level? It has to start there. Has to. And if you don't, that's the first step of alignment. Because if you also don't believe that you want to support that person get there, then that's already a problem. And it might not fester, it might not reveal itself in the near future, but it will reveal itself. And then as with Alex, my partner in the creperie, if we're checking on that regularly, we can also see what the changes are along the way. So it doesn't 6 years later hit me by surprise where Alex just wants to have a work-life balance and raise his family when I had no bloody idea that's what he was thinking. And that couldn't have just been overnight, right? That must have developed over a period of time. Well, if I had checked in with him on that, I would have been aware of that, and I would have been able to either figure out a way around it, or I would have been able to support him with it, or maybe talk him out of it. That's my mischievous self thinking, right? But you get the point. You want to know. Why wouldn't you want to know where your co-founder is at the individual level? Because you're always talking about business, no? You're going to see, by the way, as you get busier, you're not even going to have time to talk to each other about your personal lives. Unless you really have unless the kids come over and the husbands are friends and things like that. But really, you're going to be like, I haven't even asked her about, what's happened here and there. And because you're so busy, I don't know who said it. One of you said, the lady said it. You don't have time to do anything. It's like, well, you won't even have time to talk about personal things. The busier, the more successful you get, or the less successful you get, by the way. That's not that they both work in terms of time, right? So when you've identified the desired outcome, the desired situation at the individual level, you can then figure out a desired situation at the collective level, which is, well, what's living our best life as co-founders? And then when you build a team, you can have the same thing with the team. What's the desired situation for the team? And that's precise, not specific. So your desired situation isn't something. Actually, we'll do the exercise in a second. Actually, let's do the exercise now. Let's do it now. That's why. See why I don't do slides, Ollie? Because then I get to pivot. So I want you to grab. Do you guys have pens and pads? Not technology. Okay, pens and pads. Okay. And Zora, you can do this too, because it's a useful exercise at the individual. Actually, this is an individual exercise. So 7 goals at the individual level. Just write them down. 7 goals, doesn't matter when, but 7 big goals, like proper goals. Not I want to have pret-a-manger this afternoon, not something like that. Like a proper goal for your individual success. And I want you to write seven of them down. And just give me a thumbs up when you've written the 7. Okay, actually, I'm going to interrupt you now. Have you got 3 at least? I realize 7 might be too many. Have you got 3? Ollie, 3. Zora, 3. William? Jonathan? Do I call you guys William and Jonathan, or is it like Will and Johnny?
Will's good.
Will's good? Jonathan?
Yeah.
Jonathan seems too long for an intimate group. Or do you prefer Jonathan? No? JJ?
Johnny's fine.
Johnny's fine?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a bit of a lag, I think, Johnny, with your connection. Okay. 3 goals, Ollie? Okay. Next to the goals, or on a separate sheet or below them, however, What happens when you achieve the goal? I want you to write down what happens as if it's happened. So in the present tense. So imagine you've achieved that goal. What happens to you, to your experience of life? What changes? And in the present tense, so I have, I feel, right? Something like that, as if it's happened. And let me know when you got the 3. Yeah, Stacey, you got them? What happens when you achieve the goal? Hopefully, Johnny, you can hear me still.
I dropped out for a little bit.
So you got your 3 goals?
Yeah.
So I want you to imagine you've achieved the goals, and I want you to write next to them what changes for you once you've achieved them in the present tense. So I have, I feel, I notice, something like that. And let me know when the others, how are we doing, Will, Zora, Ollie, good? You got something? Okay, so let's take, who wants to volunteer? Give me a goal and give me what happens.
I'll go. So goal number 1 for me is a work-life balance.
Okay, what happens when you have that?
I have just put contentment / reduced anxiety.
So when you reduce anxiety, what does that mean for you? Imagine you had reduced anxiety. What would then happen?
I'm happy.
Happy, and how do you
chilled out? Don't shout at my husband.
Well, if you don't shout at your husband, what are you doing instead? What are you doing instead?
Yeah, just more time to spend quality time with my family, because all I do is work.
And what happens when you have quality time with your family? What does that mean? Why does that change your life?
It just makes me happy.
How do you know you're happy?
I don't know.
Okay, good. That's a great answer, by the way. So that's open, because instead of having this, you think you know what happy means, the fact that you said I don't know now opens your mind, right? And you see, Jennifer, what happens there? You see the opportunity? You now start going, well, hold on. This is a conversation I can have. What is happiness? And this starts getting you closer together in terms of not just your individual beliefs, but also how you can support each other to be happy. You see that? Will or Johnny, have you guys got, you guys want to share?
I had 2 holidays a year.
Okay. And what would happen if you had that?
Then healthy work-life balance.
And what happens when you have work-life balance?
You're happier, more productive.
And why do you want to be more productive?
Well, I suppose just make the business better.
And why do you want to make the business better?
Because that means I can have 2 holidays a year.
And why do you want 2 holidays a year?
Well, it goes back to the work-life balance.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at, you see what I'm getting at, right? The goal is not the thing that you want.
Right.
The goal is just the pathway that you believe is going to get you to what you want.
Yeah.
Which is happiness, productivity, balance.
Yeah.
You can even say balance without work life, right? You want a more balanced life, something like that.
Yeah.
Let's do one more. Jennifer, can you give me a goal?
One of mine was to be able to earn enough from Mirror to not have to work another job.
Okay, and what happens if that happens?
I feel less stressed. I'm not having to look for another job because I don't have another job at the moment.
And if you're less stressed, what does that give you?
I probably enjoy life more. I'm happier.
Right. How do you know you're happy?
Feel happy. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel anxious. I don't feel like I'm constantly having to run around and search for a job.
Okay. Now it's not a comfortable conversation, but what we're doing is we're getting under the skin of what the hell are you doing what you're doing for?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I just want you to consider what you said. There was a lot of I don't want stress. It's like, yeah, but what do you want? Right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned joy, enjoyment. You mentioned happiness, contentment, Stacey, you said earlier. Will, did you have anything like that on your second column?
Yeah, I put like the feeling of success. So it was to grow like to 1 million revenue business in 2 years. And it's like the feeling of success. And I know Johnny feels like this as well. Like, I think we both thrive off not knowing what's next and like having the ability to like not just challenge our own skill set, but also learning on the way. And like that's like one of the biggest things I love about like travel and adventure is that you don't know what's around the next corner. And it's like having that feeling of success when you do look back on it and be like, shit, I just climbed that mountain, I just climbed that rock face, I just like kayaked across that river. And it's that kind of like, yeah, real like feeling of success afterwards when you look back, but then also knowing that what's around the next corner, there's something else coming. I think that's the real joy I get out of doing what we're doing at the moment, and generally just working and just general life. That's why I kind of, yeah, continue to enjoy.
Okay, so that's the sound of the entrepreneur, Johnny, right? What William is actually saying there, and this is, I'm just going to put things on the table. You can call bullshit on them and say that's not true. It doesn't matter. I can just tell you what I hear. If it becomes mundane operations, even though you're making millions, this guy's going to get fucking bored.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, this is something people don't often know, because you have to be consistent in business and operational, but entrepreneurs don't like that. That's the death of the entrepreneur. That's the operator.
Yeah.
That's why Jennifer and Stacey, it's not a lack of structure. It's openness to ideas and creativity. You see how also it was flagged from the negative? Lack of structure, disorganized, chaotic, right? It's the yin yang, the oldest story known to man. Have I got that somewhere? I'm sure I got that somewhere. You're familiar with the yin and yang symbol? That's what William's talking about. That's the unknown, the dark, right? Chaos, unexplored territory. That's the known, that's structure. That's what you know, what you've explored already. And in Taoism, the guys who invented this idea, living in Tao is on the middle line, which is 1 foot in the known and 1 foot in the unknown, right? That's the art of progress, according to Alfred North Whitehead, that you maintain order amidst change and you maintain change amidst order. That's the balance. And it's the same thing with your relationship. You're not going to know what your relationship, how it unfolds in the future. That's also part of the excitement. But you want to know what you can know. You want to speak about the things you can speak about now so that you can better explore the unknown. And that starts with getting your desired situation sorted.
100%. I think one of the things, like, I think everyone kind of mentioned is like they're stressed, they're like anxious. And I think those are the things you realize that when you're happy is you don't have those. And I think there's a South Park sketch. It's actually really deep and meaningful in South Park, which you never think of. And he talks about like, you got to enjoy the low moments so you can enjoy the high moments even better. And I think that like kind of summarizes that probably where we're all at the moment, like it is stressful, anxious, there's money worries, there's all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you keep pursuing it and putting your foot into the dark side, then those happy moments, successful moments will come. And yeah, just got to put your head down and enjoy it.
And here's something to think about. If you're happy, will you work as hard? It's a real important thing to think about. Because Alex, my partner, was happy. He didn't want to do any more work. It's exactly right. That's why people don't like that. That's why you see the most successful people in the world came from hardship. You can just look across the board. Music, sports, movies, business. They came from hardship, most of them. Because they never were happy. And that drove them to create the type of life that they created. So something to think about, because work-life balance and happiness is a different business to Elon Musk 180 hours a week, running 3 businesses trying to change the world. Which one do you want? And you both want it. And are you clear on that? These are the types of conversations. And I get that I don't have time to have these conversations. Well, the point is, you don't have time to stress about what's Stacy thinking and why is Johnny not responded to my message and why did Jennifer say that in the meeting? You don't have time for that either. Trust me. Sitting in bed going, I wonder why Jennifer said that today, or I wonder what Stacy's thinking. You don't have time for that. Trust me, especially as you grow. So you want to deal with that now. And you want to fix it in the schedule, because you also want time out of the operations. You want time to focus on the human connection and the human desire. And that gives you a fuel up opportunity to say, you know what, 2 hours a week or 2 hours every 2 weeks or 2 hours a month, I would go monthly minimum. We are going to sit and talk about our desires as individuals, where we are, how we see things, what we're scared of, what we're not happy with, as humans, not as business owners, not as co-founders. It gives you that opportunity to just break off work and just reconnect at a much deeper level, so you understand each other better, and so you can check in on what does that actually mean. If there's one thing you're going to take away from today, that's it. Just book in 2 hours and say, we don't talk about logo colors and pricing and who's paying what invoice and who's doing the presentation. We don't talk about that. 2 hours a week. And if your best friends do it at a barbecue, get your husbands to go and do the barbecue food and sit and talk about it in the living room, or go for a walk in the local park or something and have your discussion. There's no opportunity like whatever opportunity you have, right? So I would start with a desired situation statement, something like, and you do the exercise the way I did it. You list your goals and you list why you want those goals. And you create some sort of statement. I'm happy, I'm enjoying life. Will, yours would be something like, I'm being challenged and I'm always achieving despite the unknown. It's something like that. But it's, you see, you want to get it precise but not specific. You don't want to say, I've got 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl. We live in Hampstead Heath. We have a 4-bedroom house. That's too specific. You don't need to know that stuff. What you need to know is, why the hell do you want the wife and the 3 kids? Because no one wants the wife and the 3 kids. No offense, ladies. They don't want to share a bathroom and put up with all these questions and interrogate. They want the affection, the support, the love, the challenge. That's what they want. The intimacy. That's what you want, not the wife and the kids. You see what I'm saying? There's a distinction there. What's the motive? You don't want a business. You either want to change the world or build a life that works for you. You don't care about the fact that the business is just the vehicle. To stop having to work for someone else, Jennifer. As an example. Right? And it's just a fundamental human fact of life that we have individual desires that are often unspoken, because who the hell asked you about these? Your parents didn't, your teachers didn't, your bosses didn't, your best friends hardly, right? So I'm just going to finish this off, and then we'll take a couple of questions, Ollie, and then I'll let you go. The rest of it, and I'm more than happy to share some literature on this. Once you figured out where you're going, because then you can do your co-founder desired situation too, by the way. Then the rest of your life is spent exploring ways of getting there. That's the E. And exploration is what life is. Life isn't destination. It's, in the end, you die. Again, maybe, Will, you were intimating to that too. At the end, you die. Well, what are you going to do before you die? Well, you want some sort of challenge, growth, some sort of balance, some sort of happiness, some sort of joy, enjoyment, engagement. These are good words for the E. How do you create your life in a way where it's enjoyable, engaging, exciting, right? Exploration. You don't know the answer. No book is going to tell you the answer. Gary Vee's not going to tell you the answer, right? You need to figure out your own path of exploration, and you do that by understanding, well, how do you want to live your life? How do you want to explore? That's values, that's principles, things like that. Another exercise you can do, list down your 5 top values separately, and then bring them together and see where the alignment is there. What are the non-negotiables, right? From an individual perspective, and then where is the alignment, misalignment there? Because you're going to get decisions that come in front of you, and you're not going to know how to make that decision. unless you understand how you want to make that decision as a collective. Is it money first, or is it environment? Is it work-life balance? Are you going to take a contract, Jennifer, that fucks your work-life balance? Right? And then where would you compromise your work-life balance? What is the thing that would compromise that? Johnny, the same thing. What would you compromise your work-life balance for? And is that the same as will? Because then you're going to get an opportunity and you're going to have a 5-minute decision to make, and you're not going to know how the hell to make that decision because you haven't decided what the criteria is. And once you've done that, you can start focusing on what's most important. Is the focus getting a job, getting the income in? Is it fundraising? Is it creating a life that works for me? Is it the MVP? Is it launching? Is it moving house? Is it whatever it is? You decide what the first point of focus is based on how you want to explore getting to where you want to get to. That's your priorities. And on the back of your focus, you set your goals. And your goals is literally the next step that you have to take to get to where you want to get to. And most people I work with, they set their goals first without knowing their desired situation, without knowing how they want to explore getting there, without understanding what their focus should be. And if you do that at the individual level, share, that's how you align and you create an exploration criteria for your co-founder journey. You figure out what you focus on as co-founders, and you focus on what your goals are as co-founders. And so you have the individual plans, and then you bring them together, and that's where you will identify misalignment. And it just needs a 2-hour chat a month. Believe me. What do you mean by that, Stacy? Why have you written that down? What does that look like? Well, what happens if this happens? What would you do then? And you start to understand each other more and more and more, and you start to identify any potential problems. Any questions or comments or anything before I leave?
Only question from me. So I think we've been quite good at having these informal chats. We love escaping our kids, so heading out on a long walk is great, and so that's I think something we've always done really well. But then would you recommend, I mean, are we meant to like formalize it? Do you like write it down and set targets and bullet point it and everything as well?
Yeah, not so strict, but what I do is I have a desired situation statement, right? Which is basically saying what kind of life I want to live. And then we have a combined one, and I just score it with my co-founder out of 10. And we score it separately, and then we come together and say, well, I've scored mine 6, you've scored yours 8, why? Or I've scored the co-founder one 2, and you've scored it 8, why? That identifies already that you're misaligned. If you're scoring yours on 2 and Jennifer's scoring hers on 8. So all I do is I score each aspect. So how are we doing? How are we on the desired situation out of 10? How are we on the exploration? How are we on the focus? How are we on the goals? And then you bring it together and you share. And I swap the paper with my partner, and I'll sit and look at the sheet, and then I'll say, why have you scored it this way? Why? And just have a conversation around that. And that'll bring up whatever it needs to bring up. So it's just the framework for you to explore your relationship. It's not so specific, I would say. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. And have you found previously, so say you're doing this monthly, because I always think when I've had a really bad day or a really bad week, that I think would completely change my answers 1 month. So I guess that's the importance of doing it regularly so that you can look at it and go, yeah, last month.
Yeah, and
so.
well, and if your answer is different, it's important also to share that. I mean, you could do it weekly. 20 minutes. 20 minutes a week, you can do it. You can do it 1 hour every 2 weeks. You can do 2 hours every month, 3 hours every month, an hour. You can do a full day, a quarter. It's not about, you got to fit it into whatever works for you. But the point is, every conversation that you have together, you are now more aligned than you were before. If that doesn't happen, then it's a wasted conversation. Or you're clear on the misalignment, which is as important, by the way. And then you can figure out what you want to do about that. Thanks, Stacy. Jennifer, whatever you want to say to close, even if you don't have a question, any biggest takeaway if you want, maybe?
I think it's really good advice about doing that repeatedly and regularly, because our goals probably will change over the years. We started Mirror because we just needed an escape from our kids, to be honest. We both didn't have any other work. We needed to get into doing something. And as the kids start to go to school and nursery and things, we probably will change our focus. So I think it's really good advice to keep checking in with each other and make sure that we are still aligned as we have been since the beginning.
Great. Thank you. It's like flossing your teeth, right? Why would you would you only floss your teeth if the doctor says you need a filling? No, you'd floss it I floss it every day. I don't have fillings. I'm 43. And that's the best analogy I ever give. Is when people say, how come you don't have any fillings? I say, because I floss my teeth every day. And that's not because I'm in trouble, right? You can look at it like that. You're constantly flossing your teeth to get your gums healthier and your teeth healthier and not have damage happen to your relationship. It's something like that. Okay, great. Johnny, any comments, questions?
Yeah, I think it's good just to have like the framework and something to add some structure to it. And I think, like you say, it's one of those things that, like, at the start, everyone has their kind of like motives and goals, and then as you kind of like build the business and, like you say, time goes on, it's like realigning and making sure, and then I suppose just making those alterations. So that was definitely a good takeaway.
Great. And you can also map it to business, and you can go more detailed as you go along, right? So you can start at the individual, but you have to start at the individual level. You have to, because that's your emotion. That's your desire, that your drive is coming from your personal stance, not from the business. You heard it already in your answers. I want work-life balance. I want to be challenged. I want happiness. I want less stress. That's all emotional, individual. That's nothing to do with the business. The market doesn't care that you want work-life balance. The market is not going to help you sell your product or get people interested in your product because Johnny wants work-life balance, right? So it's important that you support each other through that. So it's a really good way to start. Thank you, Johnny. Will?
Yeah, no, I think it's just nice to kind of take an hour out to look at something completely different for a change, and actually, instead of looking at commercial side of things and numbers and accounts and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really nice just to completely like psychoanalyze and look back at why we probably made decisions in the last year the way we have, and just kind of cross-referencing like that, as everyone's really said, and having a bit of a framework now to actually kind of look at it more regularly and make sure we're all on the same page and moving forward. And I really enjoyed that, kind of looking at why we've done things over the last 6 months or so. And it's
right.
It makes you think if you would have done something differently, or how can you do it differently moving forwards now. So
and here's a great thing also. It's thank you, William, for that. If you don't understand why your co-founder is so adamant about something, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you look at is, well, what is it that he thinks he's going to get out of this? Is it the work-life balance? Is it the happiness? Is it less stress? And then, so you start understanding what his motive is, what Johnny's motive is, if he's adamant about something and you don't understand it. Like, it's like, that doesn't make sense to me. The first port of call is, well, does it? And then you can ask him, is this going to help you with any of these things? Is it going to help you with your work? Like, how? Explain it to me so I understand it. Because again, you don't have to agree, but you're aligned to the fact that Johnny believes that this is going to give him what he wants. And so you get why he's doing it. So it just helps you be better human beings, partners. It just helps you be better. That's it. Okay, great. Thank you. Ollie, any comments, questions from you?
Yeah, no, just say thank you very much. That was an incredible session. I think in terms of your approach, it was obviously very philosophical. You're talking about very complex issues, but giving them in a very accessible, simplistic way, which I think, and that framework, which is really helpful and gives people practical things that they can do to take forward their co-founding relationships. I mean, you asked some really tough questions, which I think is really important. You went really deep. It was just, a really, really engaging session, to be honest. So just wanted to thank you so much for that. And biggest takeaways for me were just kind of questioning, like, where do I want our business to go? I want it to be successful, but then we're happy as we are at the moment. So it's like, what direction do we want to take it in, really? So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ollie. I saw Stacey had to leave. Thank you. It was great to meet all of you. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want any more support or if you need anything. And you can reach me through Ollie if it's easier for you. But appreciate meeting you. Thanks, Ollie, for the.
Thank you so much, Mo. Once again, do connect with Mo on LinkedIn as well.